I've been wanting to build a router table into this end of my table saw for some time. But in addition to that, I wanted to be able to use my Delta Uni-Fence as the fence for the router. And in order to be able to do that, I need to build some kind of an adapter so that I can take this part of the table saw fence off of the Uni-Fence and then be able to mount a proper router fence to the Unifence. Then I'll be able to use this nice fine adjustment here instead of 2 bolts through some holes. I think that's just kind of janky. I don't really like that too much. So what I've come up with here, and I don't have every problem solved here, so you can come along with me, but I've got a piece of aluminum angle here, and I think I'm going to be able to mount that onto the body of my Unifence, and then I'll leave this off, and then I'll mount the fence, the router table fence, onto this piece of angle, and then I'll be able to use my Delta Unifence on that. Okay, sound interesting? Keep watching and we'll see how it goes. You're watching On the Mark with Mark. Now I've set out some criteria for myself for how this new setup is going to work. And that is, I can't use any tools to do it. To be able to switch them out, it all has to be done by hand. I don't want to have to pick up any tools and hold a nut to tighten something down. It all needs to be able to just operate like the Unifence does. You loosen these up and then this slides right off of here like that. So I've got a lot of these little knobs here that work by hand, so I can use several different diameter of threads. I've got some of these T-nuts. I was thinking I might use those. And I have some threaded rod here that is the same size as these pieces that come through the Unifence here. If I undo this and this, don't want to lose those. I've got threaded rod that is the same size as this. So what I'm thinking about doing is this could go through here and then go through the angle iron, and the angle iron could tighten up right against this. Okay, so then I can use this same hardware right here like that, and then get this fence out of the way. Then if I bring that angle over, I just need to drill a couple of holes into it. Oh, it's not exactly square, is it? And then from there, what I'm thinking is I have these are pretty large screws here. I have these screws here. This is the nut that came with this fence here. And this is a bench dog fence, you can see right there. And it seems to be a pretty nice fence. And one of the things I'm really looking forward to is getting some dust collection happening at the router table, because right now I don't have any dust collection at all whenever I use a router. But anyway, if I can get this screw to be mounted in the bottom, screwed in to this angle iron and coming up here, then it can be held on by these wing nuts here. And that will get me pretty close. I think you can kind of get an idea how this might go. I need to drill a hole with a big chamfer on it for that screw. It looks like that right there. So that'll be going through something like that. That's the idea. Now I need to get all 3 contact areas here, here, and here onto this piece of aluminum. Now with all three of those surfaces on my aluminum angle, you can see it raised it up from how it was designed. So I'm going to have to make a new board like this. This is a sacrificial board anyway, but I'm going to make a new one that comes down far enough to contact the tabletop there. And then you see there's some slots in the bench dog fence. So when my screws come up through there, I'll still have adjustment forward and backwards on this fence so that I can line up decent on the router, which, as you can see, is non-existent. I had purchased a router lift, but I wasn't happy with it, so I returned it, and now I'm going to be buying a different one. So this is all still in anticipation of the router getting installed. So I have to leave a little bit of adjustment in here because I have not determined exactly where this router is going to be. So that's what those slots are going to accommodate. Now, the other thing I need to be concerned about with this is the Delta Uni-Fence only attaches at this end. Out here, everything rides on this little bumper. But on the back side, if you grab hold of the fence when it's in the table saw mode, you can lift it up. There's nothing holding it down. Well, part of the router table fence is these little T-slots right here where you can put some feather boards, because some router operations, it's very important that your workpiece stay down on the table. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this piece of angle iron so that it hangs out just far enough over the back edge of my table so that when I'm doing an operation where I need feather boards, I can come in here with a quick grip clamp and I can clamp down this far side here. I won't be able to make any adjustments after I do that. I'll have to release this again, but I'm okay with that. And then when I get it right where I want it, then I'll clamp it down from this side. I added a piece of angle iron to the back side of my table. This is not part of the Delta Uni-Fence system there. I did work at a place that had Biesmeyer fences, and I really liked those. And part of the Biesmeyer fence is this big heavy angle that goes across the back side of their table saws. So I decided that I wanted to add that to my saw too. So now I do have something to clamp to on this side. That'll bring the angle out a little ways past on this side. This piece of angle iron is 36 inches long. It's 3.5 by 2.5 and 3/8 thick aluminum. I could have gotten a custom length, but I didn't realize that until after I ordered it. They had it listed in 1 foot increments, so I just went with 36 inches. I'm not going to cut off this much just to clean this up on this side because my cut won't look nearly as good as their cut. So I'm just going to leave it a little bit long. It doesn't hurt anything over here. Initially, I thought this was going to be really easy. I just planned on reusing this part right here and then drilling a couple holes through it and then just using this same part. But unfortunately, if I pull it out far enough to grab a hold of 3/8, there's not enough of the bolt sticking through on this side to grab a hold of any of the threads. So that would have really been convenient. I even considered using my mill and milling out a triangle out of this so that this could set back in further, you know, and just leave enough, you know, whatever the Uni-Fence had for grabbing on, and that would have worked too, but that's also a lot more work. And then I thought, you know what, that just needs to be a bolt. And then so I went looking for a bolt, and there isn't a bolt of this diameter and thread that is 5 inches long, so that didn't work. So now I'm down to threaded rod, and that's going to work out just fine. I'm going to drill a hole in there, and then I'm going to thread the hole, and then to kind of end the threaded rod coming out this way, instead of just, having it finished flush, because it really won't be too flush, I thought I would use one of these, I think it's called an acorn nut, and I'll put that on there, and then that will help to lock it. It'll jam it onto the threads of the aluminum, and then if I'm running my hand across here, that'll be nice and smooth, and then I'll just cut it to the length I need, and then I'll be able to still use these same wing nuts. Just a little bit. I just need to tap these two holes. There. Wait a minute, that's not what you do. I usually don't put these into the drill, but I'm going to try that on this since this is aluminum. We'll see how this goes. Not liking it too much. Come on. Oh my gosh, it's gonna break. All right. Should have backed it up when I had the chance. But she doesn't want to come out. It'll go in. There we go. Okay. Let's get it clean out. Because I haven't learned my lesson on the first one, I'm going to do the second one with the drill again. But this time I'm going to back it up a couple times. Come on. There we go. And in. There we go. That worked better that time. What's gonna save me here is Delta put some pretty good size, oversized holes in the fence body itself. So when this is in here, you can see there's a lot of movement, because when you tighten up the table saw fence, you actually lift it up maybe a 64th or 32nd of an inch off of the table, so that the weight is on the skid out here, and the fence itself doesn't really slide on the table. So that's what that play is for. But I'm just happy to have that play, because that means my hole didn't have to be as accurate as could have been. So I'm gonna put this on here. I'm just doing this for length so that I can measure this threaded rod, and we'll cut 2 of them to length. So there's my acorn nut on there. I've essentially duplicated this item right here, only mine, of course, needed to be, well, actually they didn't need to be any longer, but mine are longer. I mean, they needed to be longer on this end, but that's fine. So let's put it in here. Let's loosen this up. Get it all on there. And, well, we may need to shorten these up. I'm not so sure if my wing nuts go deep enough. So we may be back. No, that works. Let's see if this one's gonna work. Yes. Okay. So now I've got the angle iron mounted on the body of the Uni-Fence. After checking all of my countersinks and even checking all of the bits I have for my mill out in the garage, I do not have a countersink that's big enough to get this head sunk flush. This is 3/4 of an inch this way, or so I thought. And then it hit me, maybe I could use a router bit. I have this router bit. This is the right angle, and as you can see, it's plenty big enough. Now, is this a good idea to put in the route or the drill press and run into aluminum? I know a lot of woodworking tools do work fine on aluminum, so I'm gonna try it. This might not be a good idea. That's not working because there's a flat area here where the bearing was that I took off of here that is wider than what the hole is that I've already drilled. So I've got another bit that'll do the middle section. So I'm gonna run this down through, and then I'm gonna come back with this one after I've cleared out the center. So I think this might work. Okay, forging ahead. Yeah, I think I bored it out far enough. Maybe could have stopped a little shorter. That'll be fine. Okay, this is how it is now. That's nice and flush. And so is that one. This will be facing down on the table. Okay, so this is just kind of a test fit here. So that's down, nice. And that fits in there. I'll put these two spacers here. All these spacers do is move the wing nuts up so that they're out of the way of this second wing nut, which moves this sacrificial fence. So I got that. Now I haven't epoxied the countersunk nut in the bottom side yet, because I'm still just doing this test fit here to see if everything is actually working. Like I want it to, and two rods sticking out here. These are going to get either Loctite or JB welded in place along with those other screws. This goes in here like that, and a couple of washers. Couple of big wing nuts. And now we still have, let me loosen these up a little bit. We still have this slot movement here. And then we can tighten these down. And we need to put these back in here. I still need to make the new sacrificial fences. So we got these wing nuts that lock it down to the angle iron. Loosening those up now. I still have this amount of adjustment because actually this fence is going to be shared with my brother. He has the bench dog table saw extension wing, which replaces this wing right here. So his is built into this side of his table saw, and he's been using just his standard table saw fence on his. But if he ever needed to use a proper router fence, and he said he's only used this one a couple of times, and you can kind of tell because there's almost no wear on this sacrificial fence. But anyway, he'll be able to take what I've made here and mount it on his Uni-Fence and then use it just the same as mine. But what the thing is I know his is centered, and this is the center marks I came up with. But when I put my insert in here, which is supposed to come on Friday, I'm going to try to move mine down this way as far as I can. So now I've got this much movement that I can bring it over, because I don't want to have to bend over the table any further than I have to. With the table at the end, like my brother has, then he actually you stand at the end of the table. It works out pretty nice, but in order for this to work the way my system is, I have to stand off here to the side, so it's a little bit different. But still, look at that. We got that on, and we got that on. Okay, now we need to make the new sacrificial fence, and if you notice, the router table fence has this big cutout area. We've got to cut that out of the angle iron. So it'll cut out from all the way up there to all the way back here. And that will take a lot of the strength out of the angle iron, but the fence that we're actually using the router against is this one, and this one isn't going to get changed at all. So it will still be nice and straight, even if this angle iron one decides to take off and go in some crazy direction. So just a couple more things to do. The bearing flew off of there. Well, the bearing came flying off. I've put a new bearing on, but you can see where after that bearing fell off, oh, I gouged the router fence a little bit too. Anyway, so we got a little more cut than what we really wanted right there. That's too bad. I can let it bother me or not. I still need to finish all the rest of this, so I'm gonna keep going, and I guess I'll try to keep a closer eye on that bearing. Well, that was a bit of a challenge, and it's just too bad about that bearing flying off. So now I got this weird little goober in the side of my angle iron here, which I can live with. You know, I'll smooth that out a little bit. I mean, take the corner off of that sharp edge. But otherwise, that was successful. But listen, I really hate cutting aluminum in my wood shop. This stuff gets everywhere. I'm going to stop and I'm going to clean up everything, get as much of this aluminum picked up as I can, including, this is crazy, but that stuff sticks in your shoes. And if you've got hardwood floors in your house and you just head back up to your regular house, you're going to scuff the crap out of your floor. So that's another thing. You got to be careful and clean your shoes if you're going to be cutting aluminum in your wood shop. So that's another thing I'll be paying attention to. So we'll jump ahead to a clean shop. Better. I cut a 10-degree angle on the back side of this fence, and then I just put a micro 45 on the front edge. So if there's a little bit of crumbs or sawdust or anything right on my table, that it has somewhere to go instead of holding the workpiece away from the fence. So that's all that little thing is right there. That wasn't on the original, but I think it's a good idea. This is just about the last thing left to do. I don't want these rods here to spin when I'm tightening them up. Let's see, got it on the right side. So I'm gonna lube this up with a bunch of JB Weld here. So this will go into the threads there. And I'm also lubing up this acorn nut too. So hopefully we can get a fairly clean looking JB Weld job here. Of course I gotta get it on my fingers. All right, let's okay. Now I'm gonna lock that acorn nut on here good. Like that. I can feel it bottoming out. Okay, now I'm gonna squish it down. I'm gonna give this a twist. There we go. We're on there now. There we go. That's locked on pretty good. Now this side is not threaded. It's just the bolt going through. Goop some on here. Oh my God. Let's see how it looks on the other side. I'm putting these on just to draw the hardware up tight. There we go. Okay, let's have a look at it. All right. Looks good. Well, I guess we'll see how that files off tomorrow. So let's let this set up, and then we'll come back to it tomorrow. I have all the parts made now. Now, let's assemble this, and you can see how this goes together, and then I'll show how it goes on the body of the Uni-Fence, and we'll see what you think. Let me pull you in a little closer. I'm going to start by reassembling the router table fence. And as you recall, these are the factory boards, and these are the new ones that I made. And you can see how much I dropped it down so that it goes down below the surface of the angle aluminum here. So, and then I've got the recessed holes cut in the front side just like these. So let's get the hardware in here. Okay, that's together now. I left a little gap. In there. Okay, now this looks like it doesn't fit. I've set it down on the first bolt up front, and then I come to set it down back here, and what happens is it lands on my fancy little acorn nuts here, and really thought I was in trouble here, and I thought I was going to have to cut a notch out of something, but it does still fit. Watch this. What I need to do is first get it situated on this hole back here, pull it all the way forward, and now I can just get under that nut, and then if you look up here, it just is enough that it can come over and fit over that bolt right there. So I really got lucky there. Okay, so now it's on here, and of course that's very slick. And then I got the post. These came from Bench Dog. Fit right on here, just like they did originally with these bolts that went through some keyhole slots in their router table. There is my new assembly. Okay, so you can see here's my JB Weld job for those two. These don't have any threads in them. They're just JB welded in there with a huge chamfer. I polished the bottom side of this as best I could. I just wanted it to look better. There's my little booger right there where the bearing fell off. So that's something I'm just going to live with. All right, so here's the whole fence. Now to get it on the body of the Unifence, I'm going to take these off. Move this out of the way. Okay, and now I can grab this. This is getting fairly heavy. I should weigh it. And this goes in those same holes. like that. And then, where is it? The washer's here and here and here. Okay, now it's attached to the body of the Unifence. And there's no adjustment now between the angle iron and the body of the Unifence. That is just bolted on. If I need to move the router table fence, the slots are right here. Okay, so let me move this down. I marked these holes right here. This is the dead center of my table. So that's where my brother's router table will be. So he'll bolt it down or tighten it down about right here. And then what I did that wasn't very accurate is these holes right here where the threaded rod goes through. These holes were off a little bit, which causes the body of the Unifence to actually need to be lifted. It lifts up a little bit. Also, if you recall early in the video, this piece of angle iron is not a perfect right angle. So when I bolt this on here, this thing gets lifted up a little bit right here. You can see it does it right there. But when I lock the thing in, I can still tighten it down and it's good. So that doesn't seem to really hurt anything. The sight gauge is raised up a little bit, but you know what? When I'm in router table mode, the tape down here with the measurements on it is pretty useless. Other than I need to move it a 16th. You could see a 16th of an inch. So that's not a big deal. I mean, I would have preferred that this be at a right angle, and then I would have drilled those holes a little more accurately so that this thing would have stayed down. But that's the way it goes. This piece of angle cost me 116 bucks delivered, so it wasn't cheap. Now, this fence here is actually my brother's fence, and he says he wasn't using it, and he's had it for quite a few years, and that I could borrow it. He and I share resources that way. So I'm going to have it at my house, and if he needs it, he also has a Delta Unifence. Then he'll be able to bolt it on that way. Or if he wants to, he can still unscrew it from my angle iron here, and I'm going to give him back his sacrificial fence boards and the original bolt that these wing nuts go on to. So if he doesn't lose them, he can still use this thing the way it was intended to be used by Bench Dog. So I really haven't modified this Bench Dog router table fence at all. It got a little bit nicked up, it looks like, but I'm not sure that I even did that. But anyway, that's the way it's going to work here on my saw. Now, I went on eBay and I was thinking, you know what, maybe I should buy another one of these Unifence bodies here. And right now there's one on there for I think 112 bucks. But most of them come with the table saw fence too, and then they go right up to like 250 bucks. And I don't really want to spend that much money. But if I find that it becomes too big a hassle to be switching between this fence and the table saw fence, because I'm using both of them a lot back and forth, I just might buy another one of these and use it, and then it'll just stay bolted on here. Probably could just stay down at this end of the table saw and not be in the way 95% of the time, because I'm not always cutting something this wide. So that may be a possibility. Now, I saw some other fences. I don't know if you can buy this fence from Bench Dog by itself, but I did find some other fences that are available. So you wouldn't have to use a Bench Dog fence with this, the way I've modified this. So here is a couple of other fences that I saw that have the same 90-degree part to them that would bolt right onto the angle iron the way I've done it here. So I think the prices are right on there. You can see that there's a couple of other kind that I'm sure would be just fine, but kind of got this one for like free. I mean, it's just on loan, but that's what I'm going to use. So This didn't turn out too bad. Just that one little foible with the bearing falling off, and I probably should have checked to see how tight that was. So that could have saved a little bit of headache there. But you know what? It isn't going to affect the operation at all. So now what I need to do is I need to come up with a router to put into this table here. I have my new router table insert. It is a JESM, and it is the, does it have the model name on here? I guess not. Anyway, it's made for the larger diameter routers. I've got a 3 horsepower Porter cable router that I'm going to be mounting in this. So that's the next project up. If you thought I had a decent idea, maybe hit that like button. And if you want to subscribe, that would be great too. Now, if you want to see how I go about mounting this lift in to this end of my table saw, leave a comment and we'll see if I can get that done. I've been watching other guys' videos on how they did it, and I see some things I like, and I see some things where I think they kind of missed it a little bit. So my video is going to be a combination of the ideas I liked that I saw on YouTube and a couple things that I think can be done better. So I'm only going to have one shot at this table. I've had this table here for a long time, and if you look, I've already added the power switch to it down at that end, and if you look underneath of this thing, I've actually added a bunch of ribs on this end in an attempt to try to keep this flat. But this end over here, I've always had the intention of building a router table into. When I built this part of my dust collection, this tower right here, this port I put in so that when I got my router table, I'll be able to hook up to the above the table dust area. And then this port down here, this one's facing the wrong way right now, but I'm going to turn it, and then I'm going to be building a box to surround the router on the bottom side. And I have a kind of a neat idea how I'm going to connect the dust collection up to that too, in a way that keeps the box fairly clean. You know, it's going to have intake ports on it that help remove all the dust that's inside, and it's going to have a door so that I can get to the thing when I need to. So that's going to be built underneath of here. So I've got some pretty neat ideas for how I want this router table lift to go into this end of my table saw. So, hey, you made it all the way to the end of my video. I really appreciate that. Thanks for watching. And once again, if you'd like to hit that like button and subscribe, I'll keep the videos coming. Thank you. Good, good, good.